Yeah, I just started. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well then, welcome everybody to this webinar presented by Providence Engineering and Environmental, aka Providence Oris. My name is James Redd, and we'll be talking today about a new version of our MaxDCont Viewer, version 2.01. So just as an overview of what's in this new release, um, it has the ability to add or remove a background map, much like you have in BEEST. It has the ability to select a different background map without having to close and reopen MaxDCont Viewer. You have the ability to set up or edit a location file for a background map. And we've included some new options. You can select the font size of the labels that you're displaying on screen. You can alter the opacity of your background map. I believe in BEAST we call it the gamma. You can set it up to do either a 2D or a 3D export to Google Earth. You can select a theme to change the appearance of the MaxDCont viewer. We also have a pop-up that shows up when you hover your cursor over a source, building, tank, or fence line that tells you something about that particular object. And then we've added a user manual and updated the tutorial that comes with MaxDCont Viewer. So here is your basic splash page or opening page from BEAST. Looks really familiar. And when you want to invoke or call MaxDCont Viewer, you have a couple of options. One is go to the little orange box next to show output graphically with a CONT atop it. That's one way. And the other way is to go to the run drop down, and you'll see that there is an option under run called MaxDCont Viewer. One thing I will point out here to you that's not in the slides, but it's something that actually buffaloed me a couple of times here. Um, for you to be able to call MaxDCont Viewer in either of these two ways, you have to have your UTM zone set in BEAST. It doesn't necessarily have to be the zone that your work is, but you have to have some kind of value in that UTM zone. So if you go to Air Map, and I believe it's the second tab, there's a place where you put in the UTM zone. If you don't do that and you're like going from an empty BEAST file, BEAST crashes and it doesn't want to open MaxDCont Viewer. Just a little helpful hint there. So this is what the new MaxDCont Viewer looks like. And so we're going to go through each of the tabs and discuss what the different components of them mean. So here's the top, the control area, if you want to call it that. And we'll start with this first one, the File tab. And under this, you have one called New Project. It says Start New Project, or most likely what will happen is that you can click this if you want to clear out an existing MaxDCont output file on the display. Otherwise, if you go to, excuse me, the DTA right there, it will open an existing DTA AirMod input file. And they have a dialog box that shows you what BND or boundary file is associated with it, as well as any MaxDCont files that are associated with it. And so if you have, say, more than one MaxDCont file, you would have to go in and select the one that you want to view in here. So that dialog box looks something like this. So here is your DTA file, and if you want to change it, you can click File and browse to whichever one you want, and it will pick the BND file associated with it. And down below, is a list of the MaxDCont files. And this one only has one that comes with it, and so it automatically checks it for you. If there had been more than one, you would have to go in and check whichever one you wanted to be viewing. So let's look at the next column of things you can check or review over here. There's this one called concentrations ranks, and this will also allow you to open an existing MaxDCont file that you can display. Below that, you can open an existing B&D file if you're changing either a boundary file or a concentrations file. Next to that, we have select map, and this just allows you to pull in that georeferenced background map. And if the map is not georeferenced, you can actually do that here by putting in the southwest and the northeast coordinates of the map, just like you do in BEEST. Exact same process. And then if you have the map and you want to take it off, well, there's the remove map button right there. Location here allows you to open that georeferencing or that world file and change the southwest and northeast corners if you realize that they've been entered in error for some reason. So that's another editing option you have there. Next to that is Google Earth, and this will display, or excuse me, export all the displayed objects on your show screen, whether it's the sources, buildings, tanks, ranks, or concentrations, all to Google Earth. And when we do a demo at the end of this, I'll show you how that works as well. Next to that is a save button, which just allows you to save your displayed area to a graphics file, and it can save in either bitmap, JPEG, PNG, or TIFF. Any of those can be saved. And then finally, there's the exit button, and this just exits the MaxDCont Viewer. You're shutting down, as it were. So the next tab over is display. So this is going to control what you're seeing on screen. So the first one is concentrations and ranks. And this just toggles your concentrations and ranks on and off in the display. If you want to see just the sources in the buildings, you want to turn off the concentrations and the ranks, you can turn them off here. Likewise, you can go to the sources button here, and it toggles the display sources on and off. And then buildings and fences, same thing. You can turn off buildings, tanks, and fences, leaving sources, leaving concentrations and ranks. Next to that is concentration, rank, and names. This just toggles the concentration rank labels on and off. And you can toggle the source labels on and off. And finally, you can toggle the building, tank, and fence labels on and off. So there's display, and then there's turning on and off the labels associated with those objects. Next, we have extents. And if you click this, it'll move this little blue button to the right-hand side, and you can then come down to your screen where your objects are displayed, and you can draw a little shaded box on screen, and MaxDCont Viewer will zoom to that. It's kind of like the little zoom to extents button that we have in BEEST, very similar. And then finally, on the end of this is auto scale, and just clicking this will recenter all your objects on screen, sources, buildings, tanks, fence lines, receptors, so that you can see them all in the screen at once. And this does it just like it is in BEEST. So let's look at the third tab, which is settings. And the first one here is options. And under options, we have another pop-up that has 3 tabs there itself. So here in general, the first one is decimal digits. And this will help you control the number of digits past the decimal for all sources, which will be the top value at each receptor, as well as each group's contribution, which will be the bottom value at each receptor. Below that, there's also a display threshold for group values. And if you check it, you're going to tell MaxDCont Viewer what you want to see. You just want to see rather all receptors that are above some threshold value, whether that's an NAQS or a significant impact level. It's just a way that you can filter out the data that's there. It's very similar, if not identical, to what we have in BEEST. Okay, and then we're going to go back to options, and I believe we're looking at display. So this is one of the new features that's in there. And the first one is that you can change the size of the font size on the display. Small, medium, or large is the only ones we have here now. We don't have it set to a specific point size or anything like that. So you can set that here. I think the default is medium. Below font size is the background map opacity, which I also mentioned, in that you can change the opacity or the map gamma, whatever term you want to use, from 0, which is the darkest, to 255, which is the lightest. And so there's a field with an up down arrow. You can use that, or you can just type in that box what you want that number to be. And then when you look at the display, it'll be changed to reflect whatever opacity value you put in there. And then the final tab on options is Google Earth. And you can tell it to export your objects to either 2D or 3D. And I think when I do the demo, we'll do a 3D and have it tilt so you can see how that looks. Okay, there's next field over here is UTM, and this just allows you to set the UTM zone. You probably want to have this done before you send anything to Google Earth. And as I said at the beginning, you had to have some kind of number in your UTM zone in BEEST. When you start in MaxDCont, before you send anything to Google Earth, you can then come here and put in the correct UTM zone if it wasn't correct in BEEST. And then finally here, we have the ability to pick one of several different types of themes or appearances. I will say I found out the hard way yesterday that if you use this one called blue, it turns out that the three tabs under options don't show up. So you may have to do an experiment to find out which theme works best and which doesn't like hide anything from you. Here. So here's a drop down and there's all the different ones. So I think I was using Office 2010 Blue before, and that's not what this is, but that's just an example of one that I do know that works. Last tab here is Help, and pretty straightforward here. You click this, and it'll open the MaxDCont user manual, which is just a PDF file. And below that is a command to open the MaxDCont Viewer tutorial, which has been updated. And then finally, we have the About button here. And this is just, it just tells you what the name of the program is, the version number, and some information if you need technical support, phone number and an email. So with all that, let me go ahead and pop out of the slides here and do a little quick demo for y'all. So here is my MaxDCont Viewer. And the first thing I want to do is go to the DTA button here and click it. And there's my previously set up DTA file. And it says, okay, this is the DTA file you picked. We found an associated BND file, and here's all the MaxDCont files. Well, there was only one. So these look like the ones that I want. So I'm going to say okay. And lo and behold, there they all are. Um, what's nice about this rewrite, because this is written in a more modern program language, is you can actually use the wheel on your mouse to zoom in, and you can use your left mouse to grab and drag. So here's an example with several sources, point sources, area sources. Here's some buoyant line sources, a couple of fence lines, and there's some receptors. And so if I were to hover my cursor over fence 2 anchor, it says, oh, here's just the location of that. If I hover over stack 678C, it tells me that this is a point source with an emission rate, its location, base elevation, stack height, temperature, velocity, diameter. If I hover over a tank here, it tells me the location of the tank, its base elevation, its diameter, and its height. So just have this little way to kind of tell you what the components of that object are. If I go hold it over one of the receptors, so here's the receptor with the base elevation and hill, and notice that this is the maximum concentration from all sources. So these are just the fourth highs. If I went to the highest rank, which is fourth high, well, now it shows them all. And because none of these had concentrations over the threshold, which you will see down here at the bottom left, 196, then they're put in as zeros. So if I go from all to my project sources, it tells you the top number, which is the total concentration for that fourth high rank, and then below that is the concentration from project sources. So they're fairly small numbers, and if you want to, as they say, cut to the chase, I can go back or stay on project and go to max, and here it tells me what the maximum contributions were from my project sources at any of the receptors that are over the over the max. And all of these are well below the sill of 7.8. So that tells me right then and there, I did not contribute to a violation of the standard. So coming back to, let's select a map to go with this. And it takes a little while, and there it is. So this is just a Google Earth image. And again, I can zoom in, and there's my sources and stacks. And well, if I want to change the opacity of the map, I believe we said we go to settings, options, display, and the default here is 50. If I make it 100, say okay. So it did lighten it. And I can also go back and say, make it 10, and it should be much darker. And it did make it darker. So that's the map control there. Google Earth Well, let me remove this map first. So remove map. And I believe we are recentered, auto scale. Oh, here's the extents. So I now take my cursor and just there's a little yellow box and it just zooms to what I had highlighted. And if I click auto scale, it sends it back. Here we are. Let's go to Google Earth in first. 3D export. Okay. So I'm going to go back to options. Oops. Try that again. Here we go. Google Earth. And so if we zoom in, we can see that, yep, those are 3D. Even a gabled building as well as our stacks. So something cool that you can do with Google Earth. I'm not going to save these necessarily, but I am going to go to display. And so if we zoom to our area of interest and say turn off concentrations and ranks, click that button, and they go away. The sources and the buildings and the fence lines are still there. Turn back on. We go to sources, click it, and now they go away. Back. Buildings and fences, we can toggle them off. So all we have are sources and concentrations. And concentration ranks and then let's see. Yeah, that actually turns them all off. We've got to source names and toggle them. The sources are still there, but their labels are gone. And finally, building fence and names, they're still there, but their labels are gone. A lot of flexibility you have in being able to display on screen here. I also want to point out, I believe down here we have a scale you can drag, increase and decrease the magnification. So let's see, back to auto scale these guys. Okay. Settings, options. We can change the all and the contributions here. If we wanted to display a group of values above a threshold, it's already set for 196, but if I said I wanted to see everything above 200, zoom in, whoops. Let's see, go back to maybe 200 was the highest. Oh, let's see, we go back to settings. Okay, well, they're not showing up. I must have done something wrong.
You have project selected. I think you got out of
Oh,
that.
yes, you're right. That gum. My bad. There we go. The map, I say 200. Just have those right there. And those are actually high, high, high. So I'm going to go in and change them and make them even higher, showing everything above 300. And so now we lost one, but we have these other ones that showed up. So again, another little filtering tool that you have with this. With the display, we already did the map opacity. If we change the fonts to large, and they did make them a little larger. Go back to medium. And Google Earth, we did the 2D and 3D export, so we're good there. I think that was it for that guy. UTM, we are in zone 17, so there's nothing to change there. And let's see, here's the drop down. So I had Office 2010 blue. I'll show you what I was talking about. I can find the other blue one. So there's blue, and if I go to options, you really can't see those tabs unless you put your cursor over them. So blue is probably not a good one to use. I'm gonna go back to Microsoft Office 2010, wherever it went to, right there. Finally here, the help menu, click that, there's the user manual, and below it's the tutorial, opens it up as well. And then finally the about pop-up. So that is the new and improved MaxDCont Viewer that's now a part of BEEST 12.11. I don't think this will be changed when we go fix BEEST to version 12.12. So hopefully this will be static, at least for a little while. And with that being said, that is the end of the webinar. And at this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.